Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmic Conversations. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and you're watching us on the Conscious Awakening Network. If you have not already signed up to be on our mailing list, please do so at consciousawakeningnetwork.org, or you can catch our replays or even tonight live on our Conscious Awakening Network YouTube channel or your favorite downloadable podcasts such as Spotify, Google, Android, all those biggies, or on our TV platforms, Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, and Android. But you have to download the apps. So just go to the phone app store, type in Conscious Awakening Network, download that. Go to your favorite television network, go into their store, download our apps, and you can just kick back on your couch and watch Cosmic Conversations on Mondays and Thursdays. But I am super excited tonight because we have back our guest, Patricia Walls. Now, Patricia is a certified hypnotherapist, is a dimensional visionary, a multisensory energetic intuitive, published author of 10 books, well, 9. She's actually working on her 10th. She is an international speaker and a spiritual mentor known as Healer of Healers. Her popular light language, clearing and protection, and Hall of Records workshops and sessions have opened pathways to higher consciousness and energetic transformation worldwide. Her specialty is creating very practical energy exercises to instantly shift your vibration, leaving you knowing your capacity and power to take charge of your life. And tonight, she's going to speak with us about the mysteries of light language. So, Patricia, hello, and welcome back.
Thank you very much. That was a lot.
Well, you're a busy woman. Lots going on with you.
It's kind of boring if you're not being in 8 places at one time, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, have to keep these monkey minds of ours occupied, that's for sure.
That's right. You can't just focus on one thing. So you had asked me what I wanted to share, and I talk about light language a lot, and there's always so much more to talk about. There's every day I learn something new and different about the language of light, through conversations with people, through practice, through client sessions and lectures, and because we're a channel. I don't know anyone, honestly. I don't know anyone that is not channeling, although we don't realize that we're channeling. Sometimes we just think it's coming from our ego, and it is coming from us, but it's coming from a higher perspective of us. But if you're listening, if you are being open, and if you're being what the ancients called the hollow bone, then you're channeling. If you're not trying to be in control, then you're channeling. So light language, for those that don't know, and it's odd because I always find somebody that doesn't know what light language is, and I'm always surprised. And I am attributing that to the programs that we live under, right? I just want to share, before I continue about light language, I just want to share something that I learned just this week about programs. And so I'm in the middle of a life change, and there's like so many working pieces to that. It's like putting a puzzle together to bring this all together. And I caught myself saying, I was talking with some of the sisters, and I caught myself saying, fingers crossed, eyes crossed, legs crossed, ankles crossed, that nothing interferes with this, and it all comes off beautifully without a hitch. And then I went, I cannot believe I just crossed myself. I cannot believe that I just stopped the energy.
Mm.
We don't think about that. When we say cross your fingers, right? Cross your fingers that it'll come true. You're actually stopping the energy when you do that. And we don't think about that. We are so used to the programs.
Yeah.
And it's like that almost with the language of light. The language of light is our first language. Sure enough, it's telepathic. I mean, at the core of it, it's telepathic. But human beings need to vocalize everything. We need to put everything into words. Whichever language we're speaking, we have to put it into words or it doesn't make sense to us. And so we have gotten away from being telepathic and using our connection to the one, our connection to each other. We rely on words. I'm relying on words right now to explain to you what I feel, what I know, what I understand or understand.
Yes.
I always have to give my brother Lawrence credit for that. Understand, not understand. And that's another program. If you understand something, you are not standing it. You're understanding. So there's a story about the Tower of Babel, and I've never quite understood the Tower of Babel, but the more that I tell the story, the more that I understand about it. And the story goes that we were all communicating, all of us, everything understood the one language. Everything that exists, the stones, the people, the animals, the insects, the trees, everything understood and communicated using the one language. And then something decided that there needed to be separation for whatever reason, whether it was for us to learn, to experience, to struggle so that we could learn and experience. Whatever the reason was for creating the Tower of Babel, we were all ushered in there. And when we came out, we were separate. We were speaking different languages and we couldn't understand each other anymore. And again, not just humans, right? Everything, extraterrestrials, what we're calling extraterrestrials, other planets, everything on Earth and everything outside of Earth. We were all speaking different languages. We couldn't communicate any longer. We couldn't understand each other any longer. And so we were all divided. And there were beings who never lost that ability. And as far as humans, the humans of those, they were called crazy most of the time. They were the ones that they called the holy ones. And most people were afraid of them because they were speaking a language that no one understood. And so they were thought to be touched or odd or even of the quote unquote devil, And so people are in the last, I want to say 30 or more years have begun to do their work to raise their frequencies to not the level of these old holy ones, but to raise the frequency enough to connect in and be able to once again connect into the one source language, which is what human beings have had to name light language, because we have to name everything. And so, and then we noticed, even for those humans who were identifying as channeling the light language, they were still doing it vocally, knowing that the animals, the insects, the clouds, the trees, the extraterrestrials, They didn't need the vocal language, but we still rely on that. And so that's how we were transmitting it vocally, because that's how we communicate with each other. And so in order to make sense and to be heard, that's the important things. Humans need to be heard and understood. And so we began to channel the vocal transmission of the language of light. And probably in the last 4 years, maybe even sooner than that, that I have connected into, we've discovered that it's not just a vocal language, that it's also handwritten symbols. It's also the movement of the body, transmitting energy, moving energy, transmuting energy, bringing in codes of light and frequencies. It's also the hand. Some have identified that as the mudras, different hand positions that they found have shifted energy, right? Or have brought in healing energy.
So
There's
everyone
also,
that talks with their hands actually is
exactly,
dropping back into their original languaging.
Exactly. And so most recently I learned about, or I was reminded of, emitting those frequencies. And because there is nothing new in the cosmos, right? But again, we have to name everything and we have to identify everything in order to understand it. Some people have called that or identified it as Reiki or energy healing, right? And as a former Reiki master teacher, you're drawing in, you're allowing frequencies to come through you, and you're channeling that or transmitting that to others. And it's healing frequencies of light, healing, connection, and understanding. And they called it Reiki. They named it Reiki. And so we're just now beginning to break open all of these programs of suppression and separation that we've been under. And, a lot of people right now, we were talking about this off camera, a lot of people right now are experiencing depression, anger, resentment, because more people are becoming aware of the programs and the illusions that we've been living under, and they're angry about it. So whenever I talk to people, so I offer light language in different ways, and one of those is through small groups called light language galleries, because I didn't have another way to describe it. Also the light language immersion weekends, which is a full weekend being totally immersed in the language of light and all the ways that we use it. And then also personal sessions. But as I'm doing that, I'm finding people are showing up that don't know anything about it, but they're drawn to the name and they're like, I want to see what this is. And so they show up. And I would say 80% of the time, they're already transmitting light language in one way or another. They just didn't know that's what they were doing. And you're right, Sheila, most of them do it with their hands, talking with their hands.
I would be really curious, Patricia, what was your first experience with light language?
My first experience was writing the symbols. I was creating a blanket for a new baby. In our traditions, we create a blanket, we write blessings on it. We put different things, symbols, whatever on this blanket. And as I was creating this blanket, I found myself writing these symbols, these scribbles, and I thought, they're not going to like this. I don't know what this is, you know, but it stayed. I didn't take it off, you know. And that was the first time that I realized that I was, well, that was the first way that I showed the light language. The second time, the second time was, and that was about 35 or so years ago, maybe even 40. The second time was about 35 years ago. And I was dreaming. And in this dream, I was talking to my husband and my best friend, and they couldn't understand me. It was in my sleep, an honest dream, right? They couldn't understand me. And I thought, why aren't you understanding me? And finally they said, because you're not speaking English. We don't know what language you're speaking. You know, and so that was when I showed the vocal language of light, but I still had no clue what it was. And that was like, both of those were a one-time thing. And then about 10 or so years ago, I started allowing the written symbols to just come through, just trusting. I don't know what they are, but this is pretty. And so someone sent me some information about Judy Satori and Dorian Light. And I tell everyone, these are what I call the grandmothers of light language, because 30 years ago, they were on the big stage in front of thousands of people transmitting light language. And you don't hear anything about it. You rarely ever hear anything about them, but they managed to have thousands of people. You know, they were in a conference, an auditorium. It's crazy.
But isn't that amazing? Because, you know, light language also transmits the frequency that has the effect of speaking to our souls and then affecting the changes that need to come about. So look at all those people that no doubt they helped to plant all these seeds with over the years.
Exactly. Because they both have a huge following.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that they're not really, they make no effort. They're not out there marketing themselves, you know, mass marketing, mass media. They're not doing that. People are, sorry about that. Hold on. Sorry about that. My dog's going nutso because someone's at the door. I think it's my son, though. Anyway, here he comes.
Okay, so for while we're waiting, Patricia, to return, all of you people who are out there that speak light language, or anyone who has started to draw the symbols, remember, every time you are affecting change. You know, with the light language symbols, it reminds me, you know, every time a line is drawn in the air using the principles of radionics, things begin to shift. And when we draw our attention to things, they also begin to shift. And so, you know, I'm really curious, since you've been using light language, how have you seen things shift in your life?
My intuition's gotten stronger. I mean, I've always been intuitive, but I see more what people call coincidences, right? More manifestations, more alignments, more light. I want to say more light, because the first thing, and this is not ego, this is just telling you what people say. The first thing that people comment about me is they see a light. Mm-hmm. And so the more that I transmit this energy, of course, the higher my frequency goes. And so that's the first thing that people notice about me. But where was I before Jet went ballistic? My huge guard dog. And so I started listening to Judy Satori and Dorian Light, and it still didn't click with me until I sat with a woman that I met over the internet who lives in Wales. And I went to Glastonbury, England, and she drove down to meet me. And her first time ever to transmit light language for another person. She was doing it by herself. But whenever I talked her into transmitting light language for me. And I didn't notice anything at first, but when I got back to the United States, it was like within a week, I just started vocalizing light language. And I knew what it was, of course, because I'd heard her and I'd heard Judy and Dorian Light. But so that brings me to an important note, activations and keys. I had listened to Judy and Dorian for a long time and had never wanted or felt as though I needed to vocalize it myself until I listened to Rachel. And so Rachel was my key. And I tell people that because a lot of times people will come to the galleries or the immersion weekends expecting that when they leave there, they'll be transmitting light language in one way or another. And most of them do because they were transmitting before they got there. I just help them to see how they're doing it. Right. But sometimes people will leave there and they're not vocalizing it, and they're really disappointed that they're not vocalizing it. And then they'll listen to somebody else and all of a sudden they'll start vocalizing it. I learned about the keys because of Rachel, because I had heard Dorian and Judy and never started vocalizing until I met Rachel. And it's not a ghost. He's a real person. That's fine. I'm trying to be out of the way. And so everybody has the key, right? Maybe it's somebody that you know. Maybe it's it could be anybody. So let me do. Can I offer a light language transmission?
Absolutely, we would love it.
Okay, all right. So what I'd like to ask everyone to do is just to relax, agree to receive, and release any thoughts, images, or feelings that come up, because light language, again, is a key. It's a transmission of light and energy, codes of information, downloads, frequencies. And so sometimes that will shift you in fast ways, and sometimes it will shift you in slow ways. But if it shifts you in a fast way, you may feel emotional, or you may feel light. You go through all the range of emotions sometimes. But so just relax, receive, and release. He antai na mohoili biashte a koema. Mahi ampui intai enela ko oloesha. Oni mi ampahiende elai ke o koeba. Bu itai anamawihe ka ea. Ale etai le o shele beki unkuma. Ne duale etea alaha ate luhi kia mahoemba. Bahiati ulu kia pa ieste lu utai nama. Anere e o helebe inti kuun kai mayena namo oi hipia. Otea bahatai enekea ohish sha behete eloko ontokoi. Betidvi I uhlamo ima maye eneke oloi paata atea lahiatai e ako okoiba. Shode behendo onomo imaha. de ateke ala ohlebe to oko ke uhia mai shele ichuko eshe ala he shele bo itai na mai ine oneni into umoki ahamba de alea shele ichuko pa he amamu ita ana de e looko. Thank you. Thank you for listening and for receiving and for releasing.
Beautiful. Isn't it interesting how every time we speak light language, there are similarities, but it's very, very different. Some people sound like they're speaking something Celtic or Gaelic, and other people, like with yours that came through, sounds very, Native American. And so I've often wondered if light language is something, the type of light language that we speak might be some type of a genetic predisposition as well, because we have both, the physical genes, we have our soul epigenetics, and of course they combine to make this physical form. What do you think?
That's a good question. So when I was writing the second book about light language, Unlocking the Mysteries of Light Language, when I wrote that book, I was asking lots of questions. I don't usually ask questions. I live my life in mostly trust. But when you're writing a book, you got to ask some questions because you got to have some material for it, right? And so I was asking the beings a lot of questions. The beings are my collective, for those of you that have never heard that term before. Dolores Cannon uses that term, by the way, and I was so excited when I heard her use that term. I thought, I'm not the only one. But so I just call them the beings, because I don't even try to identify this one's from Pleiades or this one's from Arcturian and this one is Modoc and this one's a dragon. I just say the beings because they're all talking to me in one voice anyway, and they're all other aspects of me. And so I was asking them questions, and one of the questions that I asked was, first of all, we call them dialects because, again, humans have to name everything, right? So I had noticed that my dialect changed from time to time. Even in the same transmission, it would change. And I thought, what is that about? And so the beings again reminded me that when we all went into the Tower of Babel, we were all speaking the same language, one language. When we came out, we were speaking different languages, whether, whatever form you were in, we were speaking different languages. And they explained to me that those languages are fragments of the one source language, right? So French, Spanish, the insect languages, the animal languages, the bird languages, they're all aspects, fragments of the one source language, the being said, because in our third dimensional dense bodies that we're in, we cannot hold the frequency of the one source language. So we can still only bring in small slivers, small portions that we need for that particular moment. And I had asked why some people cried whenever they first heard the language of light. And they answered me that they recognized their home language. And I was like, home language. Okay, you got to explain that one to me. And they reminded me that for years, because I'm an intuitive and I do, intuitive messages for people. A lot of times people would ask me, where did I come from? And the joke is spark of God, where we all came from, and, but that wasn't what they were asking me. That was my human ego going, I don't have another answer for this. So let me throw that one out there. But, and so the beings helped me to understand that what people were asking me was what was the first planet that they took form on, right? And what was the typical language of that planet? And so that's why they would cry, because apparently I would intuit that one fragment of that planet that they were first came into form on, their home planet. Because a lot of beings, fragments of light, never take form.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them don't take form for thousands and thousands of years, and so they don't always take form on a planet. But so, and then, and then one of my sisters, she had a session with this one guy, or she gave him a transmission of light language. And afterwards, he shared with her that he spoke like 7 languages, and that in her one transmission, he recognized all 7 of those languages. Mm-hmm. So where most people say that I sound indigenous, question is, indigenous to what, right? Indigenous to what planet?
Right. Yeah.
Right. But he could pick out 7 words from different languages that he was fluent in. And that was confirmation to me, that the one source language is just that. That the languages that we're speaking are only a fragment of that one source language. And I love confirmations like that, right? So what is another question? I like questions. The beings like questions.
Well, I have a bunch of them for you.
Okay.
So can you explain how light language can be used for like healing processes? And are there very specific conditions or situations that you find to be more effective to use light language with than not?
So like most of you experienced this, but as you're asking the questions, the beings were answering, and then I lost the trail of that because they were answering several things at one time. But they wanted me to remind you that we are not in control of our healing. There is the law of free will, right? But we make these agreements when we come into these human bodies. We make agreements to experience certain things for different reasons, right? None of which I could ever explain because it's not my agreement. But there are possibilities, right? There's a possibility of repaying a karmic debt. There's a possibility of suffering for someone else's growth and healing. There are all these different possibilities of why we become ill. And so whenever we are transmitting the language of light, if a person has an agreement to take one of those frequencies and reverse their illness, and that's what happens. But it has nothing to do with me, right? It has to do with the agreement between that person who's receiving and whether or not they're ready to receive that. There have been physical healings from not just me, but other transmitters. There have been physical healings. For the most part, though, what I find is people feel relaxed, people feel safe, people feel happy, people feel peaceful. Well, what happens when you change that, environment that your body's living in, right? If you are so stressed that your muscles are tense and you're having muscle spasms or even heart palpitations or any kind of physical ailment, and all of a sudden you receive enough light that your body relaxes, some people consider that to be a physical healing, when all it was Was your body receiving that light quotient that it needed in order to relax? Right? That's considered a healing by some people. But did you have a question?
I was just going to say too, when we are relaxed, then our immune system has a chance to bolster itself.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. And yes, I do have another question.
Okay.
So, you mentioned the beings. Has light language helped to facilitate, any type of higher dimensional communication or direct communication with your beings? Do you think you were already communicating with beings before light language, or was it simultaneously?
I was already doing intuitive work long before I was reminded about the language of light. Um, I've been doing intuitive work for over 40 years, and the light language just came in, I want to say 2017. And so yeah, I was doing intuitive work long before that, but it has expanded my connection, my intuition. And there which brings up a note. A lot of people say that, and a lot of people say that they can translate the language of light. And I say this often, so if you've heard me say it before, here it is again, for those that haven't heard it. So I'm not doubting that they believe that they can translate it. The beings explained to me that, and I had seen an article written by somebody, and in the article she had said that just one, if you're writing symbols, right, just one click of the pen, I guess you would say, like these.
Mm-hmm.
So just one stroke, one circle contains thousands and thousands of codes of information and light.
Right.
One click of the tongue, one vowel, if you're going to call them that, whatever you want to call it, one what we think is a word, contains thousands and thousands of downloads of information, lights, frequencies, alignments. You can't put that into an English or any language. You can't put that into a language. I mean, how do you cram 1,000 things into one word with 6 letters or whatever? You can't. And so, but what happens is, and the being showed me this in, in the way that I do things, is a lot of times when I am transmitting light language, especially if it's for a particular person, I will receive an intuitive message for that person. Well, it's not a translation of light language. It's 2 different things. It's receiving an intuitive message while I'm transmitting a channel of light. And so, because we're multidimensional, we can do 2 things at one time.
Right.
And
or
so,
you're setting an environment for healing, and you're describing the process that you're going through mentally, and then that light language comes through and is able to deliver those codes. Like you said, it only takes a few syllables to have, who knows, hundreds of thousands of informational codes enter into the body or into our fields.
Right. The other thing is, sometimes when I'm channeling or somebody else is channeling, they get a feeling that you can transmit into words. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes when I'm transmitting a message for a group, I will feel, or I'll get the feeling that I can transmit into words. The feeling of, we're so glad that you're here, or we've been waiting for you to show up and listen to this. Thank you for showing up, or sometimes I may feel an urgency, but those are feelings that I'm interpreting, through the language of light, through the codes that are coming through. It's not an interpretation. It's
Right.
my own human interpretation, right?
Right. Yeah. I would
Which
think that
is
it would be
fallible.
very difficult to try to translate every syllable that comes out because, like you said, it does have to come through our lexicon even before it comes out vocally. And so
Right,
you don't really know 100%. You can intuit, you can feel, you can understand a little bit, but yeah, knowing every little syllable or I find even in like the light language, when I write the light language, I can get an idea of what this is about, but it doesn't say this line is this and this line is this and this,
right.
it just doesn't happen that way. It's such a
Yeah,
natural part of the essence of who we are.
right. Because when you try to figure it out, when you try to name it, claim it, explain it, then you're using your own ego, and that just it just dismantles everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful. So let me
So,
ask this too. Do
okay.
you think that light language is playing a significant role in the global awakening and the ascension process because so many people have started coming forward speaking light language?
I, I don't think it's an either or, right? Because did the chicken come first or the egg come first?
Yeah.
It's that conversation. Because what I found is that since the harmonic convergence of 80 or whatever, right, more people have come online with the language of light, and more people come online every day. So it's almost like the 100th monkey theory, right?
Hmm.
It's when everybody comes online that it makes it easier for other people to come online. You know, the frequencies are here, jump on board,
Right.
you know, grab some of these. And so we are helping everyone else to come online. And these children that are coming, and I call them children because I'm a grandmother, but I mean, even our 30 and 40-year-olds, they came in more awake, more alive, more aware than we
Yes.
did or that I did in the 50s, right? They are more awake and aware. And then the children who are 20 are even more awake and aware. And so,
Right.
is it really that we are doing the work for them because they come in that way? I think I'm doing the work for those that are my age and older, right? I'm helping to bring them on board because the other ones, they came in that way.
Yeah. I'm just going to ask one more question and then I'm going to open it up if it's okay for other questions to come
Sure.
in. So if you guys have any questions, if you want to go ahead and just put it in the chat. So I wanted to ask you, with all the books that you've written and your extensive understanding and working with light language, what do you think, or let me reframe that. What is your vision for the future of light language as far as the context of the human spiritual evolution is concerned?
My vision, my hope, my dream is that people will begin to use more of the original light language, which is non-vocal, right? Telepathy. That more people will learn and reconnect or remember, because we already know it, that more people will remember their telepathic connection to the all.
Yeah,
They don't have to rely on the vocal language anymore.
right. Great, great. Okay, so we do have a question. Is there a connection between light language and sound healing?
Is that Sharon?
No, it's not, Sharon.
Um, Sharon would answer this a lot better, by the way. Sharon, and I think she's on here. So Sharon is my partner in the light language immersion weekends and the galleries. And Sharon channels light language through her sound tools, right? Because sound is another way to bring in higher frequencies. As a matter of fact, whenever someone sings light language, it's a higher frequency, and the being said that when we're singing light language, we're using the solfeggio frequencies versus the lower frequencies of our vocal cords, right? I mean, our speech.
Mm-hmm.
And so using the sound tools are sound is frequencies, right? And if you're using a sound tool like a bowl or a harp even, or anything, a guitar, anything that uses that level of frequency of light, then there's no ego in that, right? When I'm speaking light language, it's still coming, as you said, it's still coming through me.
Mm-hmm.
And it still has to filter through me and wherever I am in my current state of emotional being. But if you're using sound tools, there is no ego involved in that. It's pure light, pure frequencies.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, we have another question. Oh, what is your opinion in the difference between speaking in tongues versus light language?
I get that question a lot. So I have a little bit of experience in my early years. I want to say 10, 11. One of my cousin's husband, you have to be from Texas to understand this. So my cousin's husband's mother had a church, a holiness church, where they spoke in tongue a lot. And being in that church, it becomes an automatic, if you're aligned, and you start speaking in tongues. And so I do have some experience with that. The difference for me, and the way that the beings explained it to me, the difference is when you're speaking in tongues, you're having a conversation with the Holy Spirit. I mean, isn't that what speaking in tongues is? You're talking with the Holy Spirit, and it's a personal conversation. And when I hear people speak in tongues, they very often repeat the same thing over and over again. The same, you're not going to call it a sentence, but the same string of syllables or whatever. They seem to repeat it over and over again because it's almost, you're put into a trance. The language of light, though, is not a one-on-one conversation with Holy Spirit. The language of light is channeling light frequencies for another person, place, or thing. And so, and it sounds different. It verbally sounds different to me. So no, I don't think it's the same thing. Although I did have someone in one of the retreats that I was asked to speak at, and she had the history of being brought up in a charismatic church, and she said she was quite sure that when she thought that she was speaking in tongues, that she was indeed speaking the light language. And I don't doubt that she was, but I still think that they're two different things. It's the intention. The intention is what the difference is.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Now,
It's still the holy language. It is still the holy language, but the intention makes the difference.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. I do want to ask if you would talk just a little bit about the light language movie that you're going to be in, the documentary.
Yes. I want to give a shout out to my niece, Dina Faye Gilmore, filmmaker, director, extraordinaire, light language transmitter, intuitive. She's a lot of things. So my niece Dina is a filmmaker, a director. She's won awards. She's well known for her work with film, mostly independent films. She approached me one day and said that she wanted to make her next independent film. She wanted it to be about the language of light, and would I help her with that? And I had just began to write my second book about light language, and I had the name, I had channeled the name Unlocking the Mysteries of Light Language. And she said, I really like that. Can we use that title for the movie, for the film? And I went, yeah. And so that is the name of her film, Unlocking the Mysteries of Light Language. And she has gone really all over the world, because she interviewed people when we were in England and Scotland. And oh, she didn't go to Egypt. But anyway, she's interviewed people all over. And so the film is a collection of people transmitting the language of light, also telling their stories. And I was really inspired and a little bit shocked, and also a little bit tickled, because at the last light language immersion weekend, we had, I want to say we had about 28 people at any given time there. And each one of them agreed to be interviewed for the movie, for the film. And listening to their stories, some of them, it was the first time they'd ever heard light language coming to the immersion weekend. But some of them had known about it for years. I have repeats at the immersion weekend because we have so much fun. And so there are people who have been attending for 5 years, but listening to their each individual story about how they came to light language, how they use light language, what they believe it to be. It was awe-inspiring to listen to all those stories, because I know these people. Most of them I already knew them, but they were showing me a different side of them. And I loved that, and so she's going to compile all of these interviews. That's what the film is. The film is interviews with people who are transmitting light language, how they came to it, what do they do with it, how has it changed their lives, And it's going to be an 1.5-hour film, maybe a little bit more. And we're going to, first time ever, show it at our light language conference, which Sheila and Ken are going to be speakers at. They're also going to be presenters. And the conference is going to be May 30th, 31st, and June 1st is it Aveda or Arvada?
Yeah. Well, it just depends, but
okay.
Arvada, yeah.
Arvada, Colorado. Yeah. And we're really excited about it. And if you want to check it out, it's really simply lightlanguageconference.com. And we have a lot of amazing speakers, but we're going to show that film for the first time there. And it's going to be amazing. I'm excited to see it because I've seen all the pieces that she's been putting together, and I'm excited to see how she really makes it come together. Yeah.
Oh, that'll be awesome. Well, I'm very excited about that. So
yeah.
Everyone, be sure to check that out, lightlanguageconference.com, and sign up. So,
yeah. And we have vendors too. So there are vendor opportunities.
Yeah.
And there are also sponsor opportunities. We need sponsors. All that information's on the website. Sorry, Sheila, I had to say that.
Hey, I was going to say it for you, so I'm glad that you did. Great. Okay, wonderful. Well, let me see if there's any other questions that I missed. Yes. Do you notice animals respond to light language?
I've noticed different responses, just like humans. Just like humans, some animals will shy away from it. And I think that depends on who's transmitting it, right? And it also depends. Animals are so sensitive. For instance, if you try to give energy healing to an animal that hasn't agreed to it, they'll move away from you, right? If they're not ready for the healing or the energy that you're bringing, they will move away from you. It's the same with light language, because light language is codes and frequencies of light, right? If the animal hasn't agreed to it, then they will leave the room or they'll move away from it. But for the most part, they really love it. Babies really love the language of light because they come in speaking the language of light, and then we tell them that they should be speaking this other language, but because
Beautiful.
animals are speaking the true one language. Animals, plants, planets, rocks, they're already speaking the one source language. It's just humans that have decided to change the words and change the plans. And yeah.
Beautiful. So I see we're just about at the end of our hour, but I do have just one more question that I want to ask you before I ask for some final comments. And that is, as you look around with everything that's going on in the world today, and you speak with such hope and such confidence about the elevated frequencies that's all around, do you have any tips to share for people who may be feeling anxious during this time, or even dropping in to a little bit of fear?
So I have to say this. It has nothing to do with light language. So one of the modalities, the energy alignment modalities that I learned and taught for many years is called emo trance. You should definitely check it out. Emo trance is about dealing with emotional energy, and I use it daily. It's a go-to for me. And it's as simple as, where do you feel this emotion? Focus your energy there and talk to the emotion, the energy, and say, soften and flow, release and let go. And then just breathe. And you'll find that the energy just dissipates and the emotion just dissipates. But in today, everything that's going on with us, emotrance will be your best friend. So please do check it out. I don't teach it any longer. I promote the heck out of it, though, because I love Sylvia Hartman. She's genius. And so please do consider looking at emotrance, because it will be a lifesaver in these emotional times.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for that. And then, do you have any final words that you'd like to leave us with tonight?
Trust the process, right? We all made agreements before we came here, and no one wants to hear that, especially when they're having a hard time. But we all made the agreement to be here at this time, this place. Trust the process, right? And know that there is a plan for everything. And things are not going to happen in your time. They're going to happen when you agreed for them to happen, right? And so trust the process, because that's what you're here for. You're here to experience. Just experience and try to make it fun while you're doing it.
Beautiful. That's wonderful words to leave us all with. So, Patricia, it's always a joy to have you on. I just love your energy. It's like I just bask in it. So I really appreciate your being here and sharing everything with everyone tonight. So I'm very excited to be seeing you also in November. We have a conference coming up. I don't happen to have that. Let me see if I have
It's
that
the
on
Universal
my screen.
Consciousness Conference in
Yeah.
Oklahoma City, and
Mhm.
it is November. I think the first weekend in November, and
Second
the
and third.
website for that is Universal Consciousness. Is it Universal Consciousness Awareness? No, it's Universal Consciousness Conference,
Yes.
UCC.com.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
please go there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be Sheila and me and Sharon Varner, my partner in crime, sometimes. And let's see, the Mitchell Hedges skull is going to be there with Bill Holman and Catherine Lanigan, a famous author. Who else is going to be there that we know?
I don't know. And that's why I said I wished I had it pulled up here on my screen. But if you'll just keep talking, I will look and pull that right up.
Oh, yeah, it seems like, and I apologize in advance. I should know that there's going to be some amazing speakers there. There's some speakers that I don't know that are going to be there, and I'm looking forward to them. But it's being put on by Shanna Tippett, and she is the founder of Gypsy Soul Psychic Fair. And she's created this Universal Consciousness Conference. There it is. Yeah. I'm so excited about it. And so please go online and buy your tickets for that. Oklahoma City. It's not far away from my Dallas people, but it's very exciting.
Beautiful. And here are all the speakers. I think you've mentioned most of them.
Yeah, Bill and Catherine, you and myself,
Peter.
Sharon Varner. Sharon's going to be giving more of a workshop. Yeah, there's Shanna. Oh, Mary Delano. I think that's her last name. I'm sorry if I said it the wrong way. It's going to be some amazing people there.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a blast. I can't wait. Yeah, there's Sharon.
Family reunion. I love family reunions. Hi, D Light. Dee is from Australia. One of my sisters from Australia. I'm real excited about it.
Well, I am super excited. I think actually I saw Dee on here. Yep.
Right.
There she is. Hey, Dee. So, all
and
right.
I can't wait until you have an interview with her as well. She's got lots of good stuff to share. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are going to do that just as soon as she gets settled in September. But I also want to share my screen real quick to also let you know about another event that's coming up. And this is the Starseed Light Gathering. Bridget and I are going to be hosting it. We have some phenomenal speakers that will be there. This is free. All you have to do is go to eventbrite.com and type in Starseed Light Gathering. And then the day, I think it's either the day of or the evening of, you'll be receiving your link so that you can join us. But we really have, I don't know if you guys heard Dr. Greta when she was with us a while back, and April and Lariat and Laura. I mean, it's going to be phenomenal. So please, if you get a chance, we would love to have you join us. So I do want to thank everyone for being here. Again, Patricia, I want to thank you for being here. And remember, if you haven't already signed up to be on our mailing list, please do so at the Conscious Awakening Network.org. So you've been listening and watching to us on the Conscious Awakening Network. And if you remember to check us out, we have over 40 different platforms that you can find us on, and we would love to see you anytime, anywhere. So again, thank everyone for being here in the live audience, everyone watching us on YouTube, everywhere, wherever you are. Much love to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And until we're back together again, namaste and have a blessed week. So good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.